Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Queppe, and I'm here to help you stop screwing around and play a bigger game with your life so that you can win where it matters and earn your own respect. And I'm back, guys, and I'm in a different place. I know I don't even have all my acoustic foam and all my stuff up yet, still moving in, but it's going good if you've been following along with the drama that I've been dealing with. But settling down finally, and I'm getting back into it. But if those of you who are waiting for the next Man of Action series, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, because today we're talking about No Nut November.
Fellas, we gotta stop masturbating.
All right. And for those of you who don't know what that is, No Nut November is kind of this, what do we call it, an online meme where guys just don't orgasm during November. It's kind of like No Shave November, where you grow a beard out, only it's just for, controlling your bodily fluids. So a lot of guys do this just like as a competition or for fun with their friends or whatever. And it kind of it's growing more and more popular. And I wanted to talk about it because it's a time when people who usually don't think about this kind of stuff do. And I thought maybe I could kind of snatch some minds up and pull them into, our side of sexual self-mastery, no-fap, rebooting, that kind of stuff. So for those of you who fall into that camp, who know what No Nut November is, you're trying to figure out how to get through it, but you don't know who I am, well, my name is Mark Queppe. I am a professional masculinity coach who specializes in porn addiction recovery, sexual self-mastery. Lately, I've been moving into productivity sphere, but I built my business and stuff around learning how to control your sexual urges, in particular helping guys, recover from pornography addiction and that sort of thing. Like, I was a porn addict myself. I haven't jerked off in probably over 7 years now, and I've also run different kinds of courses and communities and kind of helped thousands of other guys do this sort of thing of getting in control of your sexual energy, stop jerking off, that kind of stuff. So I know what I'm talking about here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be introducing 5 basic tips they're going to let you kind of get through No Nut November. And then I'm going to introduce kind of one big principle that will allow you to absolutely crush No Nut November and potentially get way more out of it than just, the satisfaction of beating your buddies in this challenge. So let's get into it. Starting with tip number 1, which is don't watch porn. All right. Now, I know technically the rules for No Nut November are that you can watch whatever you want and look at whatever you want. But here's the deal. All right. When you get filled with cravings to get off or whatever, the first thing you're going to want to do is look at something sexy. And when you look at something sexy, it's going to make you feel better momentarily. But the problem is that this is going to actually just increase your arousal. And basically it's going to make things harder. Like, for guys who actually seriously want to quit porn for good, this is kind of like baseline. This is just assumed that you're going to stop watching porn, because it's part of the whole habit loop. It's like, the pornography or looking at Instagram butts or whatever is the cue, and then it triggers an intense desire to then follow through with the thing that you normally do at that time, which is usually masturbate, right? So if you don't start down that pathway of engaging in the habit of looking at something sexy, well, then it's going to make it much easier to avoid following through and jerking off, right? And beyond this, if you just, stop jerking off, but you keep watching porn, usually what ends up happening is you end up watching even more porn because you're not finishing and then being done with it or whatever. What that's going to do is that's going to just dump a huge amount of dopamine into your brain, and that's like way more dopamine than your body's like actually designed to handle. Like, pornography is a hyper stimulus that we didn't evolve to really deal with, and so by constantly pumping yourself with that much dopamine, that's going to cause a lot of issues. It's going to make you more flat throughout the following days. It's going to likely make you more irritable. It's just going to cause all kinds of problems, which we might talk about a little bit more later. But I'm just saying, don't watch porn, don't surf sexy models or do stuff like that, and it's going to make your path forward here much easier. So tip number 2 is to do something else when you're triggered. And this might sound obvious, but most guys, they don't do this. They just try and white knuckle it. And the big issue with this is what I call the pink elephant problem. So it's like, all right, if your only strategy to avoid nutting is to just not nut. What that's going to do is it's going to actually just fill you with sort of an obsession. It's kind of like you're putting yourself in a position where you're simply holding your breath, and eventually you're going to have to take a breath. It's like if I tell you to not think about a pink elephant, don't think about a pink elephant, stop thinking about the pink elephant. What are you doing? You're thinking about a pink elephant, right? So, I mean, that's the same thing here. If you're just thinking about don't jerk off, don't jerk off, don't jerk off, all you're thinking about actually is jerking off, and it's going to make it much harder to not do that thing. So you want to go do something else. Now, the mistake that a lot of people make is they say, I'm going to go do something hard. I'm going to go do something super productive. I'm going to go do push-ups or math problems or blah, 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 whatever it is. And sure, if you feel motivated to do that and you can do that, awesome. But the reality is chances you're going to have much better results if you do something easy. If you do something that's actually really chill, that just kind of occupies you and gives you enough time to let the urge pass. So simple things like, going for a walk, reading a book, watching one of my other videos, maybe playing an instrument if you already know how to play one. Play some video games. If you're not trying to manage your dopamine or anything like that, go ahead, do something else. Just make sure it's occupying and that it's not too hard, and the urge will pass. Congratulations. All right, on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is you got to talk to yourself, okay? Because, this whole thing, the enemy here is autopilot. If you are used to jerking off all the time, then that's your norm. That's your autopilot. That's what you're going to do. If you relax your brain and you stop trying, you're just going to do what feels easy and good, and that means you're going to start beating your meat, okay? So you have to be intentional. Now, the easiest way to be intentional is to maintain control of your internal narrative. Because if you just let your mind go, what's it going to do? It's going to start fantasizing. It's going to start rationalizing. It's going to start saying, it doesn't really matter if I jerk off. Hey, I'll lose and we'll laugh about it. And it's like, sure, if you don't care, then whatever. You don't care, then why are you watching this video? But if you do want to do this, well, then talk to yourself. You got to tell yourself, hey, it's okay. We're fine. We're going to just wait a little bit. This urge will pass in probably about 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to go do something else. And then, we're going to be much better off. And if this self-talk sort of thing, if you just keep feeding yourself these good thoughts, it's going to become much more powerful if you also understand that big principle that I'm going to get to in a minute or two here. So talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself. And as long as you're feeding yourself the thoughts that will move you forward, well, then you're going to keep moving forward. If you stop, well, then chances are, you're just going to let whatever autopilot is take over. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 is physically relax. Okay. So a craving, you can think of that just as like a big ball of tension. All right. It's a big knot of tension inside of you that's saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable, I need a release. And, how do you feel after you orgasm? You feel, feel so relaxed. You might feel a little disgusted with yourself, but you will usually feel rather relaxed. And that's often why a lot of people do it. But if you can actually relax without that, well, then it makes it a lot easier to avoid jerking off. So simplest thing is breathing and muscular relaxation. It's not complex stuff, but if you don't do it, it's going to make things a lot harder. So just relax, shake it out, release the tension all over. Like for me, I get tense up in my shoulders here. I got to let them out. Maybe hold my breath. And then after that, you're going to be feeling better, right? You can even stand up and do some stretches and bend over and that sort of thing. Sometimes just getting some blood flow to somewhere else other than your donger is going to make things a lot easier. So just remember that. It seems simple and basic because it is, but it's basic because it's kind of essential. So final thing, tip number 5 is strategic self-care. So here's where I'm kind of starting to break the surface here and talk about some of the deeper stuff around this. Is that porn and jerking off, for most guys, it's used to manage far more than just their sexuality. It's used to manage stress, anxieties, worries, boredoms, you name it. You can turn to an orgasm and it'll make whatever that problem is go away, at least temporarily, especially when combined with pornography. So one of the things that has proven extremely helpful for most guys is to enact some kind of discipline of self-care. And you don't want to take on too much, because if you take on too much, like, oh, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to work out, I'm going to start this new diet, I'm going to do blah, 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 all this stuff, you're not going to do it. And nothing's going to change. And in fact, you probably just stress yourself out more, and you're probably just going to want to jerk off even more. So my recommendation is pick one thing. Pick one thing that you know will help you. So it's like, if you know that one of your biggest issues is like waking up in the morning, like you just like stay up too late and then you sleep in, then work on your bedtime. All right. If you're not jerking off at night, maybe you'll have more time to go to bed earlier. Maybe it's you got to do a certain amount of work a day. Like, you got to do some studying, or you want to work on this side project for like 20 minutes. Maybe just planning your day is going to make a big difference. Like, just pick some self-improvement habit and like do that, and pick something that you know is going to make you feel better. And it makes a big difference. It really, really does. And the more targeted that you can be around this, like if you know your core issue is loneliness, well, then make sure that you are socializing to the best of your ability, that you're calling people, that you're hanging out, that you're doing stuff. Okay. It kind of requires you to think a little bit, but the payoff can be quite good. So these 5 tips should be enough to get you started and doing well in No Nut November. These alone could probably get you to that 30-day mark, where, if you want to go do Destroy Dick December, go ahead. I don't recommend it, but if that's what you want to do, you can do it. Congratulations. But if you want to learn more about this and you want to understand more about these techniques and go into greater detail and get into some of the deeper stuff, then you can check out my Reboot Regimen Guide, which you can get a link below. It's free. You can get that. Alternatively, you can check out my Sexual Self-Mastery series, which is free playlist here on YouTube that I've done, which I think is really good. But let's say you don't want to stay on the surface level here. Say, you're intrigued with this whole idea. Maybe you've never heard of the NoFap movement, where, hundreds of thousands of guys are quitting pornography and that sort of thing. But you hear about it now and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Why are guys doing that? Well, I'm going to give you a reason. And the reason I'm going to give you a reason is because this is kind of the key here. All right. Like, the number one thing that's going to cause you to fail No Nut November is that you're doing it for what I might politely call a basic bitch reason. Like, what's a basic bitch? A basic bitch is someone who kind of outsources their personality, intentions, and desires to popular society. Like, they don't kind of have their own purpose and drive and things. So like, the stereotypical basic bitch girl, what is she? She wears, Ugg boots and leggings, and, she takes pictures of her pumpkin spice latte on her Instagram and, stuff like that, right? It's kind of harder to quantify what the basic bitch guy is, but if you're just doing No Nut November because you saw some funny memes online, that's kind of basic in my opinion. So like, if that's the only reason you got, chances are you're not going to get through. Why? Because chances are you're actually addicted to pornography and masturbation if you're a normal guy, because most normal guys are, because that's the society we live in. We introduced this radical new sexual stimuli called high-speed internet pornography, and our society has not developed the socialization mechanisms around it. It's kind of like, smoking back in, the 40s, 50s, and 60s, whatever. Like, everybody smoked because it was normal and because we didn't know it was bad, and we didn't know that, you should probably quit. That's kind of how we are with pornography right now, and we're slowly catching up and realizing, holy shit, this stuff destroys your brain. It does all kinds of bad stuff to you, and the guys who recognize this, they're quitting it in droves. But it's very difficult, to the point where I was able to build a career around helping guys do this thing. Basically, a career around helping guys not play with themselves, which sounds absurd, but, until you try it, you don't realize how hard it is. So what I would recommend here is that get a real reason to do No Nut November. And what I'm going to go through here is just a few reasons that you might find valuable, you might find inspiring, might inspire you to kind of take this process a little bit deeper, a little bit further, and a little bit more seriously. Because if we can do that, then I think maybe, there's an opportunity here to dramatically improve your life. So reason number one is just raw power. Okay, like I don't think there's anything that tests your personal will more than quitting pornography and masturbation. I tie them together because I think you kind of got to do them both. Because for most of us, we've got one of these in our pockets. And, that means that there is this constant pull to look at something sexual and to get a hit of pleasure. And if you can learn how to control that urge, well, then your level of willpower will be phenomenal. That's why I almost consider it to be a rite of passage for the modern man. If you can develop this level of willpower, then you can actually take advantage of all of the opportunity that is available to the modern man instead of just basically jerking your opportunities and potential away, which is what I think most people are doing. The second reason here is that you can cure a lot of sexual dysfunction. So something like, I forget the stat, it was like 20% of like 19-year-olds have erectile dysfunction now, or some kind of, and a higher number have some sort of sexual dysfunction where it's either delayed ejaculation or premature ejaculation or, trouble staying hard or whatever. And like a lot of this stuff is caused by pornography because you're wiring your brain by doing this repeatedly, like jerking off to porn. You're wiring your brain to think that sex is a mouse, keyboard, and hand lotion, or your cell phone and whatever it is you use, and instead of actual sex with a real person. And so as long as you keep conditioning your brain like that, when you have an opportunity to have a real sexual encounter, all of a sudden your equipment doesn't work because your brain's like, wait, this isn't sex. What's this real person doing here? So, if you quit porn, you go through the rebooting process, you heal your brain. For most people, their sexual dysfunction disappears. All right, so reason number 3 here is that you can engage in neurochemical and motivational repair. Okay, and this one's probably my favorite. Basically, it's like if you are jerking off all the time, what you're tricking your brain into thinking is that you're being sexually successful when you're not. You're just impregnating some tissues, right? And so if you're telling your brain that you're being sexually successful when you're not, what you're doing is you're telling your brain to just chill out. We're winning. But if you're not actually winning, then what you're doing is you're turning off a lot of your motivational circuitry. Like men are designed to reproduce. And one of the mechanisms for reproduction is acquiring worldly status, whether it's finances, success, and this, that, or the other, like, taking care of yourself, being attractive, going out and talking to women. All that kind of stuff, like if you are jerking off, then your brain's like, well, hey, if we're getting laid anyway, then why do all the hard stuff? Our genes are passing on, we're winning. And it's like, you're not. And so, if you stop jerking off, well, then your brain starts kicking back into reality. And it's like, wait a second, we're still, living in our parents' basement and we hate our job because, and we were out of shape and no girl wants to talk to us. And, we don't even talk to them anyway, or whatever it is that's going on. Not jerking off can give you a huge amount of motivation. And a lot of that has to do with the way that it repairs your brain, your dopamine, all that kind of stuff. Like, you want to hear more about that, check out my first episode of the Man of Action series where I talk about the dopamine detox, where I think that might be an eye-opener for a number of you out there. Next reason is you can overcome sexual obsession. All right. Like a lot of guys think that, it's just natural being a man. You have to be obsessed with women. You have to feel controlled by them. You have to let them take over your thoughts. It's just it's just totally normal to go beat off in the bathroom 3 times a day because you can't control yourself. Right. It's just like I'm a dude. Right. It's like, no, it doesn't need to be like that. You don't need to be a slave to your sex drive. You don't need to let every woman capture your brain just because she walked by in a pair of yoga pants. All right. You don't need to be like this. Yes, having a sex drive is natural. Yes, being attracted to women is natural and normal and good. It's wonderful. Women are wonderful. Sexuality is wonderful. But most guys are obsessed to the point where it actually is really negatively impacting them, to the point where it's unless they're in the act of having sex or pretending to have sex with porn, they feel sexually lacking. They feel like they're missing out. They feel like they don't have enough. They feel like And you don't need to live like that. You're not designed to live like that. You can actually be at peace with yourself, whether you're having sex or not. And a lot of this has to do with like, confidence stuff and mindset things and that I talk about elsewhere. But, just knowing that you could live better, it's possible. It's just like if you've been jerking off to porn since puberty, you actually don't know what a natural sexuality even looks like. So it's worth exploring. I guarantee it. Another reason to take No Nut November a little bit more seriously is that you can start really healing up some deeper issues. And I alluded to this earlier where I mentioned guys use jerking off to manage a bunch of different things. Well, really what happens is that guys use jerking off and porn to repress shit, to repress problems, emotions, and that kind of stuff. And when you stop repressing them, well, yeah, those things will start bubbling up, like stresses and worries, anxieties, insecurities, all this kind of stuff will start bubbling to the surface, and you'll start freaking out. You'll be like, I gotta jerk off, I gotta stuff it down. But if you don't do that, and you start processing it, and you start looking at it, and you start understanding it, and you start doing something about it, you can actually heal those problems and make them go away to the point where you stop, you don't need to run from them anymore, right? And so if you're looking to do some serious work, some serious self-development or something like that, there's literally no better process. This is going to be really taking you right to the core of things, and it's incredibly rewarding. Okay, final reason here as to why you should take No Nut November seriously. You should really look at this as an opportunity to better yourself and then crush this challenge and keep it going and forget about Destroy Dick December, okay? Here's what I think. I think that, at bottom line, whether you think that, pornography is good or bad or whatever, and, I kind of hate using this term, but it's beta as fuck. Okay, like let's think about how this mechanism works. All right, when you're jerking off, whether to a fantasy or pornography, what you're doing is you're creating an image of someone. Usually, you'd like to superimpose yourself, but if you're using porn, it's literally someone else. Someone having sex with a girl that you wish that you were having sex with, but then you're just kind of watching it, and then you're beaten off. And you're just kind of hunched over and sweaty. That's the reality of it. It's kind of like, in evolutionary terms, it's like watching the alpha dude bang the cave chick that you're into, and then you just hiding in the bushes and jerking off. Like it's so like people don't think about it as what it really is. Like, imagine yourself jerking off, but then like zoom the camera back and like see yourself in third person doing it. And then like zoom the camera back further and like imagine like the top of the house or whatever's cut off. And it's like, if you're an adult, it's like, all right, your kids are sleeping in the next room, your wife's, up in bed or whatever. If you're, just a young kid, it's like people living their lives and you're just there like, it's like, it's so sad. It's so sad. But like when you do it every single day, like brushing your teeth, like you stop, you have no understanding of what's going on. You have no perspective on it. And this is why we don't look at it. This is why most people don't talk about it outside of jokes, because if you look at it kind of seriously, yeah, it's kind of hilarious, but it's also like pretty sad and I think personally demeaning. And I think if you learn how to live your life in a way in which you would be happy with anyone seeing any part of your day, that's true freedom. That's true integrity. And it's like, I know that at least me and a lot of other guys, it's like porn is something and jerking off is something that we hide. There's an inherent shame about it. And society wants to tell you that, no, that's the problem, is that we think it's shameful. It should be good. It should be healthy. And, if you want to subscribe to that, then by all means, there's plenty of people who support you. I think that's bullshit. I think that it's inherently demeaning and stupid thing, a stupid waste of time, and that there's so much more that you can extract from yourself and your sexuality if you don't just shoot it into nothing, right? If you learn how to hold it, you learn how to process it, you learn how to transmute it, you learn how to make love to life. That's what you can do. It's like your sexual energy, it doesn't need to stop, just because you're not jerking off. Like you can actually transmute it. You can, instead of pretending to make love, instead of making love to your hand, you can like make love to the beautiful reality that you would like to create. That's what sexual transmutation is. It's coming up with a beautiful reality and then investing yourself into it, thrusting yourself into it, like wooing it, courting it, and then uniting and ultimately impregnating reality with your will. That's what sexual transmutation is. And you're not going to do that if you're just all flaccid and depleted from jerking yourself into oblivion. So there you have it. These are my reasons as to why you should take No Nut November more seriously. First part of the video, we talked about, some basics for getting started. But if you want to take it to the next level, like I said, check out my reboot regimen guide below, or check out my sexual self-mastery series or any of my other stuff. But that's what I have for you. Play big. I'll see you in the next one.